Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Christina Langell. Governor Josh Shapiro faces a new challenge after the White House blocked U.S. Steel's overseas acquisition. Join the lawsuit the company filed alongside its would-be Japanese-owned buyer, Nippon Steel, and to make sure Pennsylvania doesn't lose more jobs to friggin' Ohio. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, in blocking the sale, Biden did what was expected to stand by his position on keeping U.S. steel ownership in the U.S. Was the lawsuit expected as well?
It's fair to say that U.S. Steel had been threatening, maybe threatening's too strong of a word, but saying that they would go to whatever means possible to defend their rights under the law to have, or to get this sale through, ergo a lawsuit. So they came out with there's two lawsuits here involved, and Nippon is signed on with them, but one lawsuit alleges that the regulatory process was corrupted and that Biden put his thumb on the scale and that there was never any transparency in it or any good faith effort to give a regulatory review of the sale and give it a fair analysis one way or the other, that it was a foregone conclusion. And then you have a second lawsuit which ties into the first, but this one is alleging that the United Steelworkers Union colluded with the Biden administration to kill the deal because they didn't want Nippon Steel to have U.S. Steel because they wanted to steer the sale to a U.S. buyer, and there was a specific one that they were interested in or that they supported, and that was Cleveland-Cliffs, which is in Ohio. They wanted that company to buy U.S. Steel. Both had a vested interest in that happening. Cleveland-Cliffs would eliminate a competitor, and the United Steelworkers Union felt that their jobs would be better protected. And so those two lawsuits have been announced, and we're just at the very beginning of the legal process, so we'll have to see what happens. But neither of these outcomes was unexpected.
How do local officials like Kim Ward feel about the sale?
There's a lot of uproar from Republicans. Kim Ward is the Senate President Pro Tem in the state Senate, and she's the highest ranking Republican. She also represents the district where U.S. Steel has some of its facilities that are in danger of closing down because they don't have enough money to upgrade them and keep them viable for the company's sake. And so this is a very personal issue to her. Her family, her father was in the steel industry. He lost his job when the industry declined in the 80s. They were thrown into economic turmoil. So this entire issue means a lot to her. And she's been pressing and supporting it for a while now, since it was announced in December of 2023. So again, although she isn't surprised by Biden's decision and other Republicans, other congressmen, nobody expected otherwise. But what they continue to be upset about is the reasoning behind it. Biden has continuously said, backed by the United Steelworkers Union and others who are critical of the sale, they've constantly said that letting a Japanese company take over U.S. Steel would pose a national security risk. And parsing that out is confusing in a way because Japan is one of our strongest allies. They already have a presence in the United States as a steelmaking company. And they have made a lot of concessions over the last year to help make the union feel more secure about jobs not leaving Pittsburgh and about those facilities in the Pittsburgh region being preserved and upgraded so that they can continue to be viable and efficient and climate friendly for decades into the future. One of the national security concerns, or the main concern, is that international competitors are dumping inferior, artificially low-priced products onto the market, and that makes U.S.-made steel a lot less attractive and a lot less competitive. And so then we see companies falling into decline because they can no longer compete, and it's not fair. It's an unfair trade practice. But China is the one who does this specifically. It's not Japan, although the United Steelworkers Union disputes that. Even so, Nippon has said, we will back away from our Chinese dealings. We will do what it takes to show that we are in good faith effort here. They've even talked about making sure the board of U.S. Steel is comprised of American-born citizens. So they've made a lot of concessions, particularly in the mind of Kim Ward and other Republicans who support the deal, that further demonstrate their commitment to keeping U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh and keeping it viable and keeping it this economic power, or returning it to an economic powerhouse that it used to be. If we were to lose U.S. Steel in Pennsylvania, that's several thousand jobs. That's a huge economic and cultural blow to us. So from their perspective, this is just a deal that we cannot refuse.
What impact would it have if the governor did weigh in?
That's a great question. I think one of the reasons Kim Ward is pushing so hard for him to join the lawsuit or to at least speak out is because he really hasn't thus far as does he support the sale or does he not. And so what he has maintained is that he's been working behind the scenes for the last year, talking to all of the parties involved, trying to make sure that the right investments come to Pennsylvania and that workers are supported and that whatever decision is made, Pennsylvania can continue to work towards the right solution. In his statement that he made after the Biden administration blocked the deal, he did say that U.S. Steel should consider other domestic offers and that they should stop threatening jobs. And so he never once mentioned Cleveland-Cliffs by name. And it's important to note that, like I said, he hasn't come on the record about whether he supports the sale or not. And there's no indication that he had anything to do with the outcome. However, Kim Ward still says, if that's the case, if you're really working to make sure Pennsylvania gets the best deal it can, then you need to join this lawsuit. You need to do something. You need to use your leverage as the governor to make sure that we aren't losing out on the best opportunity. Cleveland-Cliffs, for reference, tried or offered to buy U.S. Steel in July of 2023. Their offer was less than half of what Nippon Steel was going to pay. One of the big selling points about Nippon is that they could afford to invest millions of dollars in facilities in Pennsylvania and Indiana that would really modernize the technology there. And like I said, it would meet climate action goals. It would also make steel more efficient, make it more competitive in the world market. Cleveland-Cliffs doesn't have the same plans. They don't have the same technology or the same investment strategy. And so therefore, U.S. Steel obviously rejected that deal. And so now that the governor has come out and said, let's entertain other offers, it's hard to imagine a world in which Cleveland-Cliffs doesn't throw its hat back in the ring.
So Josh Shapiro is a Democratic governor. Joe Biden's a Democratic president. Josh Shapiro's a lawyer. Do you think that Kim Ward expects him to actually join a lawsuit against the current administration, or is there something else she's hoping to get out of this?
She said publicly that she does not know how he will respond because he's very much been wishy-washy about where he stands to begin with. So she doesn't know what he will do in this situation. Shapiro is a very pragmatic politician, and he is very careful where he steps publicly. And so it aligns with this previous messaging on big policy issues that he would be very careful about what he says. So I think that definitely explains why he has refused to go on record one way or the other. At the same time, he has continued to have and to express an antagonistic tone towards Kim Ward in particular. She pressed him back in November to make a statement one way or the other about whether he supported the sale. There's been some other public policy disagreements that have played out where she has challenged him or asked him to speak up or questioned his decision. And when pressed by reporters about his response, he has very curtly declined to comment, to acknowledge what she's saying, and to be very dismissive. Case in point, when another news outlet followed up on this story, he said that he knows that it's some people's job to chirp at him. And chirp was the specific word that he used. And this was in reference to Kim Ward saying, join this lawsuit or say something, do something. And that's all that he would say. He basically boiled it down to, this is just politics. She's just trying to publicly malign me. And again, very dismissive of whatever concern that she is raising. And so I would imagine that it would be very surprising if Shapiro did what she asked him to do. Again, pragmatic man. and doesn't make a choice just because somebody tells him to. At least he doesn't want that public appearance of it. And so I think, unfortunately, the end result of this is that it's just going to be on the record. There's just this continued pattern between them of animosity that is growing. What does that mean for the function of state government in the future? I think we're going to find out here in short order with the new session. But this level of animosity between them and dismissive behavior from Shapiro towards Ward is growing. And this issue isn't just a Pennsylvania one. This is on the national stage. So what steps follow and where Shapiro lands, that will be very interesting in Pennsylvania and beyond.
Kristen, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.